All right. Welcome back, everybody, to RCT Creations for this RCT Construction episode. Got kind of a double feature here. So, for the 1995 season, both Fun Corporation parks are going to add a pair of Vekoma Junior Coasters. And this is another one where I had originally recorded it as a live com, but I just wasn't horribly happy with the final result. I feel like it was kind of all over the place. So, I'm going to go ahead and dub over the layout construction and then the scenery completion portions. So starting over here at Funland, we are going to be focusing on the downtown section of the park. And believe it or not, this is the first, I believe first, addition to the actual downtown portion of the park ever. In 1970, it opened with a Tilt-A-Whirl and Cyclone, and ever since it's been left untouched. We've kind of added to the suburb portion of the area, but the actual downtown portion has been untouched ever since until today. So as you saw, I did not have the original coaster selection I had wanted, and this is going to go for both of the parks. So I'm going to end up using the LIM launch coaster as a base, and then we're going to add the Vekoma Junior Coaster trains to it. I guess it would be the Vekoma Family Coaster. Now, the trains used are more modern than what would have actually been used, but they were the closest to what I actually wanted. So we had to enable chain lifts. So if you enable chain lifts to draw through the cheats menu, you can actually put a chain lift on the LIM launch coaster. And then we're going to kind of go from there. And as you see here, we kind of have an area sectioned off, and this building is going to end up being in the way. So we're going to build the back portion, the brakes, and the ending of the layout, and then the lift hill and the beginning of the layout as well. This is another layout that I had pre-planned ahead, and we're going to use that layout. So I took a picture of it with my phone and was using that as my reference point. And both the coasters are going to be identical, so both the layouts will be the same. But we're going to put it right next to Cyclone here. And I really like the location of this ride just because you can kind of make it more of a park area feel while still kind of keeping the downtown area kind of cohesive. So as we go through here and we build the layout, we're going to get our transfer track ready, excuse me. This was kind of an interesting case for both these coasters. As I put them up, I had an idea of what colors I wanted them to be. Although I hadn't had it set, as you see, we finally decided our color scheme of the one here at Funland is going to be white with black supports. Now, I wanted one of them to be white, and I wanted one of them to be red. So Funland ended up getting the white one, and I still had no idea what to call these coasters. So we'll get into that in a moment. As far as the Vekoma Junior Coaster model goes, this is a model that I thought I was going to have to make kind of proprietary, meaning I would have to, because most Vekoma Junior Coasters actually have a booster, like a drive tire lift. But unfortunately in the game, there is no drive tire lift for this track style. And this track style was fairly common for the mid-90s Vekoma Junior Coasters, so I went with it. Now this is actually the Schwarzkopf / Premier track style that's used in RCT2 as a base. It's really the Schwarzkopf track, but it fits the Premier style pretty well, and it actually fits the O.D. Hopkins track style really well as well. Now, given O.D. Hopkins is kind of an obscure coaster manufacturer, but if you ever would want to build a Hopkins roller coaster, this is the track style it would use. Off topic, I know, but I did find out later in my research after these coasters were completed that there is, in fact, one Vekoma Junior coaster, at least one, I don't know if there's more than one or not, that does feature a chain lift. So it did end up working out all right. It actually is the one that is at a Disney park, Barnstormer. Kind of, I thought that was kind of interesting that they used a proprietary chain lift as opposed to just the standard booster lift. Because to my knowledge, again, that's the only one I know of that has a chain lift. I didn't do a deep dive because there's like 100 of these junior coasters, but quite a few. As far as the layout goes for this coaster, we're going to kind of stick to a pretty basic layout. We have our curve first drop, and then it's just going to kind of wind around a little bit. The ride itself only has 2 drops. The first drop, and then this one right here to end the layout. Outside of that, those are the only drops these two coasters have. Uh, just kind of meanders around above a little bit, which I think fits pretty well. And that's something that I think a lot of people tend to miss out when you go around and build your park, is family coasters actually are a really good way to kind of fill out your lineup. So don't be afraid to throw one or two family coasters in, because right now at Funland and Joyland, we have our original E.F. Myler Junior Coasters, and now we're putting in more of a family style Vekoma coaster here. But don't be afraid to flesh out your lineup a little bit with a couple of junior coasters to fill it out. Taking inspiration from Six Flags Magic Mountain mainly, because I believe they have 3 kiddie/family coasters, and then Energylandia has, too many for me to even count. But here's the one for Funland. We'll watch it test a little bit, kind of float around the layout. And I think it actually ends up turning out pretty nice. So we have our transfer track there, but we will get into the scenery construction here in a little bit. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get ready to flip on over to Albany, New York, and head on over to Joyland. So as you see, we ended up naming this one Silver City Express. Kind of a little bit of a tram style, like the ones that are kind of above the streets in Chicago. Anyway, here we are in Albany at Joyland. We have our section here kind of out in the corner. This one's going to require a little bit of modification of the Joyland Mainline Railroad. And then another situation here where I actually did not have the LAM launch coaster selected. So I had to switch over and then grab it and then go in and build it. Another reason this one's kind of awkwardly paced is, again, because I did a live com and didn't like it. So here we are, me dubbing over, hoping to talk for a consistent half an hour. I think the Kingman one turned out okay, so we're going for it again. But I had a kind of a challenge building the one over at Joyland. The nice thing about Funland is it matches up with my design world a lot better. My design world actually has the ground level set to 0, so anything above 0 is pretty easy to set. Here at Joyland, I think the base ground level where we are is like 40 feet. 30 feet, excuse me. But it's not as easy to play with as it is at Funland, so it takes a little bit of mathing to get it right. So we're going to build out our basic layout. As I said, one of them was going to be white, one of them was going to be red. Joyland ends up getting the red one. This one's going to be called Red Line Way. I was originally going to call it Red Line Railway, kind of like a public transit thing, but then I found out that's actually a real thing. So I kind of had to shorten the name up a little bit so it wasn't too spot on. One small detail I really like, and I know I've mentioned it before, I really like how the coasters now have like an actual real life color scheme to match when you start them. The initial base layout there actually had a Flight of Fear color scheme with the rusted rails and the gray track and black supports. And then our transfer track had a Poltergeist at Fiesta, Texas color scheme with the yellow track and green supports. Small detail that I really like that the Open RCT2 team has thrown in. Really, really like that. Anyway, started building the layout. Again, didn't have the trains, so I had to switch that over. And then doing this actually is kind of a pain because you have to go into the cheats and then like completely redo the way the LAM launch coaster works. You have to change the operating mode, change the trains, all that fun stuff to get it ready. And when we were going over the Funland coaster, I did not mention that these are going to feature a transfer track and actually be able to run 2 trains. Something that's kind of interesting, the Vekoma Junior Coaster is pretty prevalent. At least it definitely was, even to this day, because they still make it. You can ask Vekoma to put a transfer track on it and run more than 1 train. I'm kind of surprised that Cedar Point, they have one called Woodstock Express. It's a Vekoma, it's one of the, I think it's the largest, like, base model. But it actually does not have 2 trains, it just runs 1. Meanwhile, at Islands of Adventure, they have the exact same model. I wrote it as Flying Unicorn way back in the day, now known as Flight of the Hippogriff. But it actually did not. It actually features 2 trains, so it has a transfer track. And then the one at Disney also has a transfer track as well. And then one thing that's really funny about those transfer tracks is Disney and Universal really try to hide the fact that they transfer trains on and off. So I mean, you can see that the track switch is there, but then the actual transfer track itself is almost looks like it's longer than the actual ride because it just kind of goes off behind the bushes. Look up a POV of Barnstormer. It's actually kind of funny how far out it goes. But as you can see there, I kind of messed up the height because I'm bad at math and then had to go back and redo it. Then another thing you may have noticed is we just demolished the transfer shed or the maintenance shed for a white Cyclone to make room for this ride. So we were a little short on space in this top corner here. So we did end up having to get rid of that, unfortunately. But it'll end up looking pretty darn nice, I think, in this area. And it's kind of just sectioned off over here by itself. I do like that the train goes right by it. And then as we get into the scenery building, especially at this park, you'll find it kind of just juts off over by itself. So there's not much over here, but over by the ride. We do end up relocating a ride over right in the middle of the layout here, just to kind of add a little bit more of a draw to the area. But I think all in all, it ends up looking pretty nice. I really, really like how the layout turned out, which is the minimal drops and then the twists and turns. It can be kind of difficult, for me anyway, to put a layout like this together where it all just kind of fits together really nice. But I really think this one did. I mean, not intense, just kind of glides through the layout, really good for families. And then here's the ride we're going to go ahead and relocate. We're going to take the Crazy Cabby's bumper car ride, and we're going to move that over there eventually when we get into the fitting out. But let's go ahead and switch back over to Funland here so we can fit out Silver City Express. We're going to get our transfer track all ready. Originally, I was going to do all custom supports. In fact, in my live comm for this, I was kind of bragging about, oh, I'm so excited to do full custom supports for this. Then I started placing them. And one thing about custom supports, and I'm a really big baby when it comes to custom supports, and I think I mentioned this in my Kingman video, but if any of those supports flash through the actual ride, it drives me crazy. Like, I cannot stand it. So if you send a train over it and you can see the support kind of glitching through the track, I would rather stick with base supports, which I think already look pretty good anyway, and just leave it kind of like that. So you'll end up seeing some custom supports in the lift hill. Sorry to disappoint that I didn't do full custom supports all the way out. I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't do that because I was going to go in on that and try that and then just didn't because I didn't like the way it looked in the long run. But as far as our theming goes, we're going to keep it with the downtown theme. So we're going to use that RCT2, I believe it's Wacky Worlds scenery, which I really like. I like the detail in it. The expansion packs in RCT2 get a lot of, rightfully so, criticism because the scenarios just were very bizarre and the scenery was very, very niche because a lot of it was just so complex and a lot of it didn't fit together at all, like just basic fit, and it just didn't work. But I feel like this theming, I think it's the North America theming, I think it looks pretty good. I'll consider it. It's detailed enough while still leaving it pretty vanilla to the eye for RCT2, which I really like. I'm a big vanilla scenery enjoyer in this game. So if you ever play this game and you tend to use vanilla supports, or if you're really good at doing custom supports, hey, give me a shout. I'd love to watch some content with really good custom support work because I'm really bad at it. As you can see here, it takes me like 30 years to figure out what kind of supports I want to use. And then, so as far as the live comm goes, this one actually got its fitting out done second. So I ended up doing Red Line Way at Joyland first and then Silver City Express second. So that's why this one's kind of going by so smooth. But I think all in all, this one ended up looking pretty good. Our catwalk here, again, all vanilla scenery for the catwalk. I think it looks really good, especially with the fact that you can tilt the rails with the Tile Inspector. No complaints from me here. The only complaint I have is the base blocks that kind of stick out the bottom, but that's one of those things I can overlook with the final result. I think it looks pretty good. And then we're going to go ahead and replace the building that we tore down. So we ended up taking out that info kiosk. And I wanted to make sure that that got put back. So we're going to build a building over here and then kind of make sure we get that put back. And then we're just going to add some details. We're going to put the spotlight back that was on the first building that we demolished and put it back up there. And then we're going to change the plaza a little bit to kind of fit our new coaster's entrance. And this is something I went back and redid once or twice. The one at Joyland got redone multiple times, which you will end up seeing because I wasn't horribly happy with it. I kind of decided at this point that I'm just going to I think I'm just going to record and then do commentary over when I do scenery. I'm never horribly happy the first time I do scenery, and it takes me a couple tries to get it right to a point where I really like it. But you'll see here, I already redid that path. I've redone the queue line already because I wasn't a big fan of the way that little garden in the middle worked. So I just decided, you know what, we're just going to do some overflow in the middle, do a little bit of shade covering over the top there so our guests don't burn in the sun. And I think at the end, this coaster ends up looking really good. And I started originally with red shade coverings, but I end up changing that to more of a neutral blue color because I felt like it fit the garden better. Because originally I kind of wanted to make this like a Central Park kind of feel where you just had a garden in the middle of the queue. Just to kind of ease the, I wouldn't say tension, but just to kind of, when you're at an amusement park, sometimes for families especially, can get kind of stressful. And just having a nice garden place. It's just kind of go sit and chill out, even when waiting in a queue, I think is kind of nice. Or it would be kind of nice. That's one thing I feel like Universal and Comcast nailed with Epic Universe, is that park is just absolutely beautiful. Even when you're not near the rides, that park is just gorgeous. If you haven't had a chance, highly would recommend heading out to Epic Universe if you would have the opportunity. And then at the front, we're going to put a fountain there, put that fountain back, make the catch pool a little bit bigger for that fountain. We're going to do a little bit of dirt at the base there. We're going to remove some of that construction fence. And then we're going to line this building up so we can put the info kiosk in it. And then kind of modify the terrain. When you put trees down, something that can really help your foliage is just kind of making the terrain underneath it rough so it all looks like it's on a different level. If you put all your trees on a flat plane, they all just look really static. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of character in them. But when you add a little bit of land underneath, you can kind of see each tree has a different peak. And I feel like that fits really well. But anyway, going into our new building, I really wanted to fit it in a circular pattern so I could put the info kiosk in the dead center. Ended up being able to do that. So what I did is I removed the base and ended up kind of adding on to our building right here and creating a little bit of an entrance plaza, adding a few more details on the roof. And then we'll grab that info kiosk and plop it right there inside the building. One worry I had with this initially was I was really worried guests would go in there because the pathfinding in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, not great, and guests tend to get lost pretty easily. However, when I ended up opening the coaster, it ended up working out pretty well. So the guests did not get caught in there. They ended up finding their way over pretty easily. And they didn't end up getting caught. Now, this is something I wasn't a big fan of either, so don't be surprised if this building does not last a very long time. I put a maintenance building right next to the parking lot there. Now, if you are parking, probably not the best spot to put one of your back behind the scenes buildings is right next to the parking lot where all the guests are going to be able to see it. And then it kind of cuts off the way for equipment to get back over there to that transfer area. So, yeah, don't be surprised if that building's not there very long. But we're going to connect it over right there with the Cyclone maintenance bay. And then we're going to go ahead and get our QTVs placed in and get some more foliage placed just to kind of add a little bit more detail to the surrounding area. Get our staff all zoned up properly. As you can see, I'm deleting some of the extra path. I got really lazy when I first opened this park originally and just kind of like used the 4-cross just to get my staff placed. But I tend to be a little more picky now where I put my staff. All right, so that completes Silver City Express at Funland, and now we're going to switch back over to Joyland so we can fit out Red Line Way. So we'll start by removing that train track, and we're going to move the bumper cars over. We are going to end up moving the bumper cars, as I said, over in this area. At this time, I still didn't have a full idea of where I was going to put things. And this, when I mentioned that I wasn't horribly happy with the way the commentary turned out with the live com for this is one of the main reasons. I built a lot of things with this ride and in this area that I did not like. At the time, I was like, good enough, but I really will beat myself up about things I don't find that are very good. So even the final result, I'll end up throwing an image overview at the very end of what the final result of especially this ride is. The one at Funland did not change much from what you saw at the end there, but the one here definitely does. Um, Especially with the pathing and the way that ends up. Here's our first go at custom supports. So as I mentioned, this was the first one I was going to fit out, and this is the process right here. So we're gonna put a arch support right there. It's not gonna end up working out because well, we'll get back to it. You'll see. If you know what I missed going through this process, don't be afraid to leave a comment and say RCT Creations, you dummy, you forgot to do this, because I certainly said that to myself at the end. So as nice as it looks, it's not gonna last horribly long there. And then there's a perfect example of one thing I don't like with custom supports. I went and disabled clearance checks, but you could see how the custom support did not line up with the track, and there was a huge gap right there. And on some rides, it'll look great from 3 angles, but then you flip the camera and there's one where that support piece doesn't connect, and it will drive me crazy because I notice it right away, drives me up a wall, and I cannot stand it. So that's one of those things I have to. That's why I tend to use the in-game supports more often than not. I wanted to make a support that went over top there, didn't end up finding anything I liked, so I just ended up putting a basic support in down there, and then using the in-game supports. And I've said before, I don't mind the way the in-game supports look, so I tend to not go too far against the grain on that. But man, this was just a mess, all in all, trying to get the custom supports in. But in the end, I think it ended up looking all right. We're going to go ahead and work on the station. The station here is going to be a lot more generic than the one that's at Funland. A lot of things with Joyland tend to be a little bit more generic. It makes it pretty obvious that Funland is the flagship of the two. And it should be. I mean, it's the year-round park. It's the one that it's going to get the most attention. It's going to get the most visitors. Although Joyland does really well for itself as well, so I can't complain about that. So there's the original placement of the bumper cars. You can see we have our queue line ending right there. And I tried to leave enough space there for an overflow for our queue line. Although it's not going to end up working out like that because, yet again, like a dummy, I forgot to leave space for our transfer track to move over where the queue line is. And you'll notice when I build this transfer track, there is a point where I stop working on it and leave so I can start thinking of doing something else. Because I was not happy with the way this transfer track went over. But the final result I think is okay, and you already saw the final result over at Funland. I think the transfer ends up looking just fine. I was gonna do it like this. There's a huge gap in the catwalk. If for whatever reason you need to evac from there, having a huge gap where your transfer track is probably not the best thing in the world, especially if you need to move your guests off of that area. So as you see, I end up demolishing the entire thing. I think I end up doing that 2 or 3 times while I go through, just because I'm not happy with the final result at all. I'm just so picky when it comes to stuff like this. And I will spend, an hour on, what is that, 12 tiles, 11 tiles of space. And I can spend well over an hour until I'm finally happy with it. But as you can see, we're kind of starting to get our, find our way with it. And all in all, I think it ends up looking all right. it does kind of get, and even the one at Funland at Silver City Express, it has this problem. There you go. There's the switch where I needed to take a break from it and find something else to do because I was so unhappy with how it was turning out. But there's our road. Make it, fit it in with the downtown area a little bit. Make it look kind of nice. Little prison style, kind of. That's one thing I really was not a huge fan of, is how prison-y ends up kind of feeling. But at the same time, when you're in a downtown area of a city, especially like some of the East Coast cities that tend to be older, they do kind of look like that. And not to say all cities look like that, but some of them kind of do. But I feel like it, all in all, fits pretty well. So here we are back at the transfer track again. Kind of finally found what I wanted to do. Found something I thought looked all right. And I think it looks just fine, just like that. We have our catwalk going all the way across there. And I think all in all, it looks just fine. And then we'll get our station pieces kind of decorated up a little bit. Get our stripes over the top. As you can see, I still cannot figure out which direction is left and which one's right when it comes to Roller Coaster Tycoon. We'll put in our restricted area fence right there around the ride. And we'll work on it on that side as well. And then we'll put it around the supports. Really don't necessarily need a restricted area fence around the supports. But we'll... I guess I don't end up putting one in there. I thought I did. But when you're high enough off the ground, you really don't need a restricted area. And then with Redline Way, I ended up going with the grass look underneath as opposed to the dust and dirt. And yeah, I guess just dust and dirt. I didn't end up going with rock or anything like that. But I think I went with a little more foliage for this one. And then it's right next to the employee the corporate office walkway there. So I kind of wanted to hide it a little bit. You're not going to hide that coaster 100%, but just hiding it a little bit, I think, ended up working out all right. Then going back over here, so you'll see me put these flowers in. I'll put a overview at the very end of what the final result ends up looking like. And I might even do a live comm of it just with the final result, because this is one that ends up changing quite a bit compared to the initial inception. Because I wanted to do that little pond there. Wasn't horribly happy with it. And what I end up doing is just kind of putting in a little lake. So it just looks a little more nice. But then the rest of the area ends up kind of looking pretty wide open. So you'll walk past White Cyclone, past the Joyland downtown section. Then there's just kind of this open area. And there's a reason for that. We're kind of prepping our next edition, our next major edition after that, which I'm really excited to kind of get into. Maybe the maintenance shed at White Cyclone coming down is a sign of the future. You just never quite know when it comes to stuff like that. Get the rumors and keep the guests guessing, pretty much. So we're going to put our... Anyway, we're going to put our maintenance bay for Redline Way over here. I've mentioned before, but with every coaster at the Fun Court Parks, I want them to have their own maintenance bays. And originally I was going to go for kind of a sheet metal feel, but I wasn't a horribly big fan of it. So we just kind of went with a pretty generic building. Nothing too extraordinary. It's kind of out of guest view anyway, so it doesn't have to look great. But we'll just put it around. And then make it look like it's a complete building over there. So there you go. There's that. There's our garage door, so we can open and close it for our off-season work. And we can store our trains and all our parts in there. And then we'll put on the finishing touches. So here we go. Here we delete the custom supports that we had in place. And if you're like RCT Creations, you missed your catwalk, you would be absolutely right. So I spent all that time working on the catwalk for the transfer track and brakes, and I forgot to put it on the lift hill. So evacing on the lift without that catwalk would have been pretty darn difficult. Anyway, here we are with our lift catwalk. Unfortunate thing about putting the lift catwalk in with the custom support packs I have is I do not have a support that's able to arch out, so I have to just put in a vertical one. I was really hoping to have one that arched out. I was really disappointed when it wouldn't fit, but it is what it is. We will make it work with what we've got. One of my mottos, we do the best we can with what we have. And then just make it look nice. Originally, I was going to try to have just a catwalk on one side, but I ended up deciding against that, deciding to put a catwalk on both sides. As you know, with some of the arrows I've put together, there's only a catwalk on the left-hand side, but we're just going to go ahead and put it on both sides. No reason not to. And then we're going to put it all around there. So this is the final result of Redline Way here. I think the final result for the ride itself ends up looking pretty good. Pretty happy with it. Not too many complaints on that end. But let's go ahead and get ready to switch over to our live com so I can show you the final result. All right, so here we are at Joyland. This is actually the off season at the end of 1995. So this is after the first season has been complete for Redline Way. As you can see, the game is paused just so I don't burn up staff wages, but our cash is set to what it will be for 96, and the date has been reset as well. But at the end, so here's what I ended up coming up with. Instead of that huge open kind of path area, I have one small little pond with a couple of fountains in it, which I think looks pretty darn good, actually. I mean, it's just kind of, it's symmetrical, which isn't my favorite thing ever, but I think all in all, it looks pretty good. And then we have just kind of this dirt area here, which is just kind of prep for our next edition. We have our path to take our White Cyclone trains and get those refurbed, but as you can see, they are on the track and ready to go. But that was the end of the modifications I made for Joyland in favor of Redline Way, but I think all in all, the area ended up turning out pretty well. And through 1 year, let's go ahead and take a look. We got 61,580 guests on the ride, and Redline Way ended up running both trains all season long. So that is all I've got for Redline Way over here at Joyland. Let's go ahead and take a look at Funland for Silver City Express. All right, so just for consistency, I do have the game on mute so we don't have double over music because there is music that plays in the downtown section. But all in all, looking pretty darn good. Pretty popular ride. As you can see, it's still in the overflows. Capacity is not great on these two attractions, but they do run 2 trains, which is the bonus of that. First season complete for Silver City Express, we had 93,882 riders. So more riders for Silver City, but it was open longer. It ended up opening in March of 95, although limited to 1 train. Just kind of a little bit of a storyboard. There was only 1 commissioned train until June. So Redline Way actually ended up opening with both trains prior to Silver City Express. I think the queue with 1 train when full was about a 40-minute wait, which was certainly not ideal, but I think full now it's like maybe 25 minutes. So definitely an improvement for sure. But hey, if you made it this far in this RCT construction episode, thank you for tuning in. I really do appreciate you sticking around and watching me ramble on and on for about a half hour, if not a little bit longer. We'll get the POVs for these guys out later this week, but hey, thank you a lot for tuning in. This is a really fun series. I'm really happy to be doing this. And I'm really happy to be able to share some of my creations with my favorite game from my childhood. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.